It's been quite nice out in the forest since I got there in May, and I made a nice camp. But the other last Friday got down to almost 39, and it was woo. And last night, the we had rain from that last Friday till last night. Not all the time, but it was one of those things when I love it where I live in. I've mostly lived in places where it had seasons, right? And where I'm at up there in the Appalachian bubble, and you know, Miss UK, why don't you give me a jingling later on WhatsApp if you got it. That way I can talk to anyone outside of the U.S. of A. WhatsApp is my thing. If you're living in America and you want to talk to me, just send me a little Gmail at my Gmail account, which is the dude awake 42 at Gmail. And hopefully you're spreading the word of Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. I'm gonna try and figure out how to get a one of those little accounts that you can just throw some loose change in my account. Haven't set it up yet. An old dog learning new tricks. But today, how it works is the universe seems to always help me out. So today, I'm heading back to my little deep green forest retreat is about 200 miles southwest of Johnny Boy. And it's up in the mountains. It's probably higher up than where the school is, but it's south and west. It's a whole different bioregion, as they say. So it's 200 miles. That's gas cost me about $60 to get from the deep green to the school. About $100, give or if I eat or da 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 da. And when you're living on $540 a month, yeah, it's kind of tough. And my car is very, how there's dog years. My car is like 1,000 years old in car years. Anyway, I was going through this town, about 70 miles from my place in the deep green. It's just on the edge of Tennessee and Virginia. It's called Damascus. Maybe it's in Virginia. And it used to be a kind of, industrial coal kind of town. And then it, kind of went under before World War II because it was, they were digging, they weren't using machines, guys with picks, and they were using, horses to pull the coal out of the ground. Anyway, but there was a lot of infrastructure, paths where they had rails that the horses would pull, the things of coal, and then they'd, put it on the railroad and take it off. Anyway, so around the 70s, 80s, when the flower children escaped the cities, the urban areas, and they were like looking to go back to the country. This is one of the places, right? Tennessee, and I'm right on the border of Tennessee, so it's not that far from Gaston's, the farm in Tennessee. And so, and by that time, all the old timers were dying. All the people who had anything on the ball had left, and so it was really, you could buy a farm for nothing. And so, this town in the 70s and 80s kind of rebirthed itself, rebranded itself as, it was right along the Blue Ridge Parkway, right along the Appalachian Trail. And so it was just right for, they had a couple of little, houses. People bought them, turned them bed and breakfast for the campers to, stay a night or two, get a shower, get a meal. They had a couple of stores that catered to campers and food and camp gear and stuff. So anyway, that's Damascus now. And so there's like bike trails and all kinds of groovy stuff. And there was this right on the bend, and right in the middle of this town, there was always this diner. And like every 4 months, somebody would, they couldn't hit on it. Anyway, some guy who lived in there was pretty smart. He's a contractor. He bought the property so he didn't have to pay rent. Got a good deal on it and redid it nice, like upscale but interesting food. Got a really good chef. And today was like, the fifth or sixth day that since they opened. Right, it took them longer to fix it because they tore it all apart and rebuilt it into something very nice. Anyway, so I go in there and, I get the cheapest thing they have, which is soup and, grilled cheese for $6 and a cup of coffee, which is, if I'm going out to dinner, that's about all I can spend for a month. I can go out maybe 3 or 4 times. Like when I go to the IHOP, I just get a cup of coffee and they let me sit there all day, and tell stories. So, anyway, I'm sitting at, I didn't take up a table. I sat at the counter, and the lady who came by and took my order, I said, oh, let me, I read her palm, and she goes, wow, that's amazing. And anyway, I read everyone's palm, and everybody was there. The owner was there, his son was there, his wife was there, his new staff was there, the chef was there. Anyway, I read every single one of them. And they nearly shit their pants because I'm very good at what I do. And so they were like, whoa. So the guy says, no, you need to eat more than, he goes, do you make money at that? I said, well, I used to. I used to work for desperate lawyers. I used to work for municipalities. I used to work for everybody and read what their business or their individual or their corporate state was, and I'd give them advice. And usually I was always right on. That may not be exactly what they want to do. Like our present economic system, we don't live in capitalism. We live in a oligarchic, plutocratic oligarchy of corporate state. Few people own everything, own us. We're back in Louis the 14th, we're back in the Roman Empire, and we're all slaves. And we're given the illusion through consumerism to be free, but we're not. And so, these little hiccups like our debt jumped by 20% in 1 year because of Donnie and the Republicans' tax break for the corporate state and the top 0.004% of the people. They're not paying it. No, those guys don't pay taxes, right? So the debt jumped way up, and that's why the interest rates are going up, because it's being more expensive for the government to borrow money, along with you folks who have credit cards and everything else. And everyone and their brother is buying as much as they can because existentially they know this is going to collapse any day. And it is. Within the 40-day little period, shit's going to come down like you kids don't believe, can't understand. And there are all these outliers, meaning I was paid really serious money to look at the trends and the outliers and connect the dots, right? So they close. I don't know if any of you have been watching this, but they closed the Solar Observatory, right? They all of the big, telescopes in space have had, Hubble, gyroscopes went down, the solar mats went down. All of the ones that look far out on the edge of our solar system have stopped working. And we just had, a little, no one can get to the space station anymore, the Russian satellite. Now they got a, escape capsule for the kids who are up there. They can get down, but no one can go up. So shit is happening, really, really, and that's just on one plane. On the other plane is the economic plane. That's like, wow, and this thing that happened in Turkey with the, the kids of Saudi Arabia whacking some poor guy who actually supported them. He was like, one of their buddies who said, no, things are going to work out. And they whacked him because MSB, the new dude, wants to show that he's as impermeable. If the Russians can go whack anybody anywhere, not a problem. If America can kill millions of people like they did in Iraq and Saudi Arabia without, getting any blame, not a problem. They want to do the same thing, right? They want to join the big boy club. And they did when they hooked up. See, guys, you don't understand that Israel and Saudi Arabia are the same folk. And they're the folk who orchestrated the controlled demolition of World Trade Center buildings, the two towers and Building 7. Just go to Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. Just Google 9/11 Truth and a zillion websites will come up and will give you a lot of good information, and you should make up your own mind. Anyway, so there I am in this nice new restaurant, and I read everyone, and they're all like amazed. They're like, wow, he just walks in and tells me, and I told them their deepest, darkest secrets right there and then. It's like, what? Right. So the owner pulls me off the side. He goes, so this is pretty amazing. Can you tell me what I need to do? And I said, sure can. And I just gave him a little list of all the things. He has got a really good chef who makes really good soup. I said, focus on your soups, have breakfast all day long. And I gave him a whole list of things. And I said, you'll take over this town. And he comes from that town, so he knows the ins and outs. He's not like some yokel who's just showed up. And he's got a little bit of a cushion. He owns the place. He fixed it up. He doesn't owe anybody any money. He's not paying interest. And so he said he's got a whole year that he doesn't have to worry. And I said, well, if you do this, this, and this, you'll be making some serious change, in a matter, by Christmas. People will come out of their way to come here. So he wants me to come back. And anyway, long story short, they loaded me up with food. They stuffed my pockets with money, with cash. And he said, you don't ever have to buy food here again. So that's how it works for me, And now, he's not doing that for everybody, but I just kind of blew his mind. I'm going to, when I roll by there again, whenever I do, I'm going to give him some more insights because, I meditated a little bit on it when I was halfway here. And so what does that mean? So why did I tell you that little story? That little story is this little, it's now 12 minutes and 58 seconds. From this point on, I'm going to basically give you a story because I'm going to give you a nice big long story at 7 p.m. And I want all of you folks who are watching, go tell your friends to come to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob and take a look, right? 7 p.m. But for now, I want you to think about how you get along with folks. Are you in a relationship with anyone, that you're living with them, you're married, got a boyfriend, girlfriend, you work, you come home, traffic was terrible, you really feel grumpy, you walk in, and your significant other there does something that pisses you off. They don't know that, and then you get into an argument. Instead of getting into that argument, what you should have been doing was seeing why that thing that other person did irritated you. And look at them as a mirror. Look at yourself, not them. They're not the problem. You are. See what you did, why you did it, etc., etc. Right? And then have a conversation with, how was your day? My day was this, and I was feeling that, and how are you feeling? And this is how you have a long-term relationship. I've had many, many, many beautiful relationships. My life is about relationships. Why did I go in that restaurant? And, I said, what's the cheapest thing? Soup? And I said, oh, the soup is pretty good. And it needed, meaning the guy made a great soup, but he made it around 10 o'clock, and it was 1 p.m. And they didn't have one of those things that doesn't keep cooking the soup, but keeps it at the temperature you want to serve it at. So it wasn't cold, but it wasn't as hot as I like it, right? And there were a couple other things. Everything was very good. I could tell the chef was a straight up guy, but and a real value to that restaurant. But it's, the fourth day in, so he's doing all, and there were a bunch of people there. It wasn't like it was empty. There was, They were kicking out 4 or 5 meals, and they were a little slow. And but people were enjoying. It's got a lot of sun, so people were just enjoying sitting there. And so anyway, the thing is, I didn't get upset that the soup was not the right temperature, or I had to wait an extra, 5 minutes faster than what I wanted to get my food at. Because now I gauge everything by IHOP. IHOP, my little IHOP, my office. I go in there. If the place is like stacked up, there's people waiting out the door. I never understood why people wait out the door to go to IHOP. But anyway, it's like waiting out the door to go to McDonald's. So, but they have a table waiting for me. My table's always there. And I have one of three things. I either have, this is at the IHOP, the tilapia, the spinach mushroom omelet, or what's the other thing I get? Oh, I forget, but there's one other thing. And and they go, what you want? I go, that, and they put it right in, and I get it like within, even if there's a line up and people are waiting an hour, they've already given the thing, my stuff shows up because the two chefs back there are my buds, right? So I'm in this restaurant, it's their 5th day of being open, and I don't get all upset. Oh, what a beautiful, look at that view, right? And what else is beautiful is the bed is very comfy, one of the sweetest beds. When I need to sleep someplace, I come here. But this is my jacuzzi room. And I come in here and I soak my bones. Buddy commented on my earlier morning a message to you, and he said, boy, you looked awful sore. Right. And that's because every morning I wake up, and because of my charcoal legs and my neuropathy and my diabetes and all the other things I got, I wake up every morning in screaming pain, right? And I have to meditate anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour. And my earlier things from the spring, when I was sitting out under a tree meditating, that's what I was doing, when I was doing. And that is an esoteric symbol of freeing your consciousness. Anyway, so yeah, I was in pretty sore condition, but now I'm about to submerge my lovely body into the jacuzzi, and I have this great stuff that my doctor friend gave me that keeps me from getting gangrene. He says, just wash your feet with this and you'll be A-okay. And he's right, this stuff is like, but when you stick it into the jacuzzi and you turn it on, it bubbles up like, whoa! Anyway, the bottom line, I go into the restaurant today, after closing down my campsite and heading toward Johnny John Boy's, because, he could say, oh, let's go to California, let's go to Texas, let's do this, let's do that. And I'm going to, I don't want to be out in the middle of Nebraska in a snowstorm and John goes, I'm so anxious, get out of the car, I can't be with you anymore. That's not going to happen. So, but this is the right time to head for California, right? The hurricane season is almost over, maybe 20 more days of it, and there's going to be 2 more nasty hurricanes. Probably one that is going to be like a cyclops, and it's going to probably hit New York City, and it's probably going to take land at Red Bank, New Jersey, right where my sister is. And Red Bank is right at the opening mouth of the Hudson that goes into the harbor. And if it hits it right there, it will disrupt, because right along the coast there, all of the East Coast railroads are right there. And if a 4 or 5 hits there, it will rip it up. And it will also affect, because New Jersey, I don't know if you guys have ever taken the New Jersey Turnpike into the Holland Tunnel, or the tunnel, whatever tunnel it is, Lincoln Tunnel, whatever tunnel it is that goes from New Jersey Turnpike into Manhattan. Just you go like from Red Bank to there, and there's about 20, 30 miles of oil refineries and plastic refineries and refineries of stuff called esters, which is shit that you make plastic out of. But they're very volatile, and they are in there when esters mix with other compounds, they turn into zines, which become these really, you think black mold is bad? This stuff will eat you alive, turn you into a zombie. Not kill you, but really turn you inside out, literally. And if this hurricane just comes sideways, coming up the coast and hits Red Bank and plows into these chemical refineries, whoo-wee, and then behind it, there are a number of nuclear facilities that are owned by corporations who have been skimping on maintenance for the last 40 years. And then, if it's a really wide one, that eastern side of the hurricane, which is where the nasty winds and the heavy rains will come right up the Hudson, and that surge will go all the way up to Indian Point. And Indian Point is a nuclear power plant owned by Con Edison that is like one of the first commercial nuclear power plants, before they even knew what safety was. And because of Ronald Reagan signing a number of executive orders, and then Billy Clinton doing it, and then George W. Basically, that thing is still open. It was supposed to close down in '68. So the radiation level of that place is like, whoa. And the concrete is like a teacup, a China teacup, because it's so irradiated that it's brittle. The steel, everything is like, forget about it. So if that sucker comes into Red Bank, destroys all the really volatile chemical things, takes out the nuclear chemical things, which would basically mix up with the ester stuff and make a super duper devil's brew, and then keep going and wash out all of lower Manhattan. I mean, take it out. And all the water would rush, because, lower Manhattan used to be a landfill, and it's all below waterline. And you get a 20-foot storm surge, it'll go all across Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, Long Island, and wash out the airports, all of this chemical industry, and then keep going up the Hudson and take out Indian Point. And there is a good 48% chance this is going to happen. And no one's talking about it. But if you look at all the European models and the Japanese model, and the fact that the satellites that would give us the solar max information, that was the things that cause this is the sun and not the heat from your car. Anyway, so there's a lot of information that's being unplugged so no one can see it. And so there's that. There's economic collapse. And the other thing, this whole thing about Saudi Arabia and Donald Trump, what's going to come out, not so much this, why did they kill that guy in their place in Turkey? Because there were a number of folks who were going to come out and spill the beans about 9/11, and that it was, an oligarch thing, the Bushes, the Cheneys, the Rumsfelds, that whole crew, plus Saudi Arabia, plus Israel. These are not Jewish folks. I mean, I used to live in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and my landlord was a rabbi, and he had a Lubavitcher, which is a rabbi school, and I had gone to a Catholic seminary to be, a rocket scientist for the Pope, and I was too much like Jesus, meaning I kept saying, no, not money, people. As I said, our lives are about relationships, right? So anyway, they wanted to disrupt everything. And of course, there's all this stuff called unexpected consequence. So those morons thought they were going to be able to just do whatever the heck they wanted, and then all this crazy shit went down. But see, it's not just one group like the Illuminati. No, there are a number of these. Mobs. That's the best. And you should go look up the Anunnaki, right? They are the Aryans the Nazis were looking for. They're not part of the 12 tribes. They are another tribe. They were a bunch of this, I can't pronounce or remember this name, but there's a group that was right there between Afghanistan and Libya and Greece and Europe. And it was just a mob. And they kept messing with the trade between Asia and Europe. And Russia was, they were the main people making money on that. And they went to those guys to listen. Because they were basically just pirates, land pirates. And they're called before 7 p.m., I'll go do my homework and look up their name. But the Russians said, listen, you can either be Muslim, Jewish, or Christian. We don't care. They're all the same anyway. Pick one and pretend you're that. So they chose Jewish. And what they had was a lot of bling. So they went into Europe and started selling crime in Europe. They didn't just, stay on the side of the road and be bandits. They went big time, like all mobs try to do. And that's where the term Jewish came from, because before them, they were the Hebrews, not the Jews, the Hebrews. And where did the Jew term came from? Well, Europeans didn't let Jewish folk own property, hold position, do anything. They were allowed to have bling, fluid cash, gold, diamonds, jewelry, you name it. So, I think, who was it? It was one of those popes. But anyway, he named them, these guys, the criminals who cruised in, because the other Jews kind of just, came in a few at a time, not a horde, whereas this mob came in as a mob, just like MS-13. And MS-13 was set up by the CIA. When we had the Iran-Contra little debacle, that was all being funded by cocaine. And the gangs that were doing it were turned industrial size by the CIA, and that's who these guys are. The Contra, the MS-13 is like the children and the OGs of the Contra. And all this stuff is pretty much straight up. I mean, they make movies out. Tom Cruise just made a movie about it where he's like flying cocaine. And that, tells the story pretty good. So, all of this is like, you'd say, this is hell on earth. Oh, it's the end of times. No, this is like every other day. Same as it ever was. The thing is we're getting to see it right in front of our eyes. And the only sand that we can stick it in are these screens, these, digital screens, these quartz screens. They're all made out of sand. You're looking at me, you're sticking your head in the sand. You're sticking your head in the sand. So how do we fix this? We fix this by hello. Yeah, here I am. Yes. Right. Okay. Put it in a special place because I had to leave and I probably won't be back for a couple of weeks, maybe. Okay. Right. Right. Okay.